morning, Adam. How you doing today?
Hello, everybody. Flew into Milwaukee yesterday, drove to Green Bay, and here we are getting ready.
Could have stopped by my house. I'm right on the way. Straight up 43.
Like you would have been there.
That's a very good point. Excellent point by Gabe. We'll move on. How is it up there? We got boots on the ground. I see a ton of our ESPN folks having dinner, reveling, enjoying. How's everything looking from a infrastructure standpoint?
Oh, I have not been to Lambeau. We'll go there today. We'll see how that goes. But look, the NFL makes these things look really big, seem really big. They are big. And I'm sure it's going to be quite an event here over 3 days that start tomorrow. Like, that's just the way it always is. And every year seems to be bigger and better. And I guarantee you when they have the camera shots on ESPN tomorrow night and people are watching, you're going to be like, whoa, that looks really cool.
Adam, who are the Packers going to take at 23?
I would think that they're going to look at a couple of different positions. I think defensive line. I think wide receiver wouldn't shock me. Could see a guy like Derek Harmon from Oregon, defensive lineman, wouldn't be a shock. We'll see if that winds up panning out. The 𝘾𝙃𝘀𝙀 is there. We'll see if that plays out. Be another name that I think would be in consideration. So we'll see how that goes, but I think those would be a couple of names that would be in play.
What do you think is the earliest we see someone trade a draft pick? Whether, obviously trade down, because, I know the reports are out there, Adam, that 2 and 3 are available, but I have a hard time thinking somebody's actually going to give up enough to have either of those two teams trade out of 2 and 3. Who makes the first big splash move? Because it has been incredibly quiet on that front going into the draft.
Well, Gabe, a couple of things. We're all waiting for moves. We all want the action, and I'm sure there will be some. But I think this is the first time in the common draft era that we're the day before the draft and every single team still holds on to its initial first-round pick. That doesn't happen. So there's already been a tremendous lack of activity. And part of that is because teams don't see quarterbacks that they are willing to move up to go get. And the other thing that I think you have to consider is the fact that the talent in this draft, the strength of this draft, is considered to be in rounds 2, 3, the start of 4. So those are the picks ordinarily when you're moving up. You're trading your 1 and the 2, your 1 and the 2 and the 3. Those are the picks that I think teams don't want to move off of. They want to hold on to those picks. So you have a lack of quarterbacks to move up for. You got teams identifying the Friday night picks as the strength of this draft, and it creates a combination where there haven't been a lot of moves. I'm sure we'll get a couple tomorrow night. I'm sure. But I'm not expecting anything dramatic right now, famous last words, because all of a sudden then there'll be 7-8 trades.
Adam, we obviously are paying very close attention to the Green Bay Packers, but peripherally I'm paying attention to what the other teams in the division are doing as well. And I heard this morning thoughts about Ashton Jeanty, the dynamic and fabulous running back out of Boise State, potentially being a target of the Chicago Bears. What's the thought on Jeanty? He's real. He's 5'9", listed as 5'9", but he's bruising, he's strong. Is he the type of guy who can make a difference at the next level? Saquon Barkley obviously did. Is that the general thought surrounding Ashton Jeanty, and should I be worried about him becoming a Chicago Bear?
Well, I would say this, that I think Ben Johnson, the new Bears head coach, is going to want to add some type of offensive weapon. I'm not so sure that Ashton Jeanty will make it past 5 and the Jacksonville Jaguars. If he makes it past 5, yes, he is in play at 10, and yes, I would worry about Ashton Jeanty winding up there. But it's a case where you've got the Bears in a position at number 10 where I think they're going to take an offensive weapon. If it's not Jeanty, it could be Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland or wherever that is that they take there. So, look, they got the 10th pick. It's going to be used on someone good. Ashton Jeanty is considered to be a blue-chip prospect and person, like the kind of guy you want on your team and in your locker room. And we'll see how that works out. But, if he gets past 5, and I were a Packer fan, I'd be worried about him going 10.
Adam, does Pittsburgh have to take a quarterback in the first round because Aaron Rodgers is doing his normal dance?
No, I don't think they have to, Chewy. They're going to consider it. And if Shedeur Sanders makes it to 21, which is very possible, I think that's going to be an organizational decision that they have. And I think the Steelers would like to trade back from 21, which tells you that they're not married to the idea of taking Shedeur at 21 no matter what. it'll depend on who's there, whether there's a running back or a defensive tackle that they also like. Shedeur will be in play at 20. Look, they've got 2 quarterbacks on the roster right now, Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson. They're going to add 2 more. I don't know whether that's going to be Aaron Rodgers and or Kirk Cousins. I would think they're going to take a quarterback at some point this week, but let's keep in mind they traded their 2 to Seattle for DK Metcalf. So if they don't get one in round 1, the earliest they're taking one is round 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think there is such a ranging opinion on Shedeur Sanders? Because he's kind of, to me, one of those hinge points of the draft where, well, if he goes in the top 10, that opens up other things for, some other teams. Or you mentioned maybe he ends up falling all the way to 21. Why are the opinions varying on him? Because I feel like when we started the draft process, Adam, like, oh, he's going to go top 5 easy. And now, who knows? He might even, blast through the first night.
Look, 𝘾𝘃𝙀𝙀 still has him rated as his top-rated quarterback, and I think there was a year, Mel's very first year for ESPN, he had a quarterback that he had graded as the 3rd prospect in the draft who slid to the 2nd round, and when the draft happened, Mel thought, oh boy, my 3rd-rated player just went in the 2nd round, I may get fired. Well, Boomer Esiason went on to have a pretty good year, career for the Cincinnati Bengals, and just because teams are bypassing Shedeur doesn't mean that he's not going to make it at the next level. We just don't know right now. I think teams have found flaws in his game. I think some of the hate that there is out there for Deion Sanders has been transferred onto his son, Shedeur. I think people have found flaws in his game. I think there are teams out there that just generally don't love this quarterback class, that don't think any of these quarterbacks are worthy of being taken in the first. I mean, there's a whole slew of things here that we can go into, right? But the fact of the matter is, that, to me, is the biggest storyline of Thursday night, where Shedeur is going to go. And he can go anywhere from 3 to 21 to the early part of the 2nd round, I think.
Adam Schefter hanging out with Jen, Gabe, and 𝘃𝘃 as he does each and every Wednesday. But gosh, are we happy to have you headed into the NFL draft in Green Bay tomorrow night. So we have talked about this before. There's always a little bit of subterfuge out there. I'm not saying with you because you've got these great relationships with all these teams, GMs, et cetera, scouts. But when you see reports on various media outlets and they either contradict what you're saying or it's not what you're hearing, do you grin a little bit, Adam? Are you like, oh, this is the thing where teams are starting to put false information out there to throw other teams off the scent so people can't put together their board? It's vertically, right? When 𝘃𝘃 was talking about it, they talk about how they put their board together horizontally. That's who they want. But then they try to put it together vertically as well and figure out who the other teams are looking at. Do you see it that way? Do you get a little chuckle out of that?
Well, you know what's funny? Like, this morning, I was talking to Peter Strager. He did his mock draft, and he gave a certain defensive player to a certain team, and he tells me, he goes, "Oh, the defensive coordinator loves this guy," and I said, "Well, I spoke to the head coach there. He told me they're not taking that guy." So, it just there's a lot of ways to get the information. You don't know who's making the final call. By the way, like in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur may feel like he wants a certain guy, and Matt LaFleur could tell you or Chewy or Gabe, I'm going to take this guy, and 𝘃𝘃 does something entirely different anyway. So it's very hard to predict how these things are going to go. Sometimes I'll hear something like, I've heard people say, oh, this team likes a tight end. And I'm like, well, that's funny. I spoke to the head coach yesterday, and he said, they're not taking one of these 2 tight ends. Like, so it just depends on where you're getting the information from. Like, there are a lot of people talking. There's a lot of information coming in. You have to kind of decipher where it's coming from, who said it, how the team operates. Again, it's just it's the way it is.
Adam, does Jair get traded during the draft? And if he does not, do they keep him or cut him?
Look, I think when we get to this point, trades with anybody in the draft are possible. Like, I would think that that's a last-ditch effort, right? Like, if the Packers get through the draft and even like the first couple of days next week, and no one's trading for the guy in May or June, like, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, you might get some movement. But at the very least, Chewy, I think you could say that we're kind of at a critical juncture with this, and there should be some clarity in the next week, right?
Yeah.
Who's a team that's a wild card in the draft where everybody's kind of waiting on to see what they're going to do to kind of, try to figure out who might be there for when they pick?
Gabe, here's what I would say. Wild card. And I got to get going in 2 minutes here. But I would say this: wild card teams. We got 5 quarterbacks who think that they could go in the top 40 picks. 5 quarterbacks. There aren't that many quarterback needy teams willing to spend a top pick. So some of these quarterbacks who we think of as first or second round may not go there because we know the Titans will take Cam Ward. But one of the Giants going QB, one of the Browns going QB, Saints, Steelers don't have a 2. There's 4 and there's 5 guys. Somebody's going to be sitting there. Maybe a couple of guys are going to be sitting there a little bit longer than we thought that they would be.
Adam, before we let you go, how was your dinner last night? I saw it was 𝘾𝘃𝙀𝙀's birthday. You were looking for places to eat in Green Bay. Looks like you found one. How was it?
We had a nice time. It was great to be with the people. The people have been lovely, and looking forward to being here the rest of the week.
Adam Schefter's got to go. He's got to get up, get the information out there. Adam, we appreciate you. We'll see you.
Okay.
We'll be up there.
Good to know where we
Have a
rank
great trip.
versus
Good
get
to
up.
see everybody.
He's like, bye.